The scream came from inside the tunnel. Not loud, not desperate. It sounded patient. I was standing at the edge of the road when I heard it. The Christmas lights behind me humming softly, blinking red and green against the snow. The town had shut down early that night. Shops dark. Streets empty. Even the wind felt careful, like it didn't want to disturb something. The tunnel sat just beyond the last string of decorations, carved through the mountain decades ago. A black mouth in the rock. No lights inside. No markings. Just darkness swallowing the road. People avoided it. Everyone did. The scream came again. Closer this time. I stepped toward the entrance without knowing why. My breath fogged in the cold air. The smell hit me, damp stone, old rust, and something else. Something like burnt pine and rot. I stopped. Inside the tunnel something moved. I couldn't see it, but I felt it shift. The sound of footsteps echoed, not walking out, but circling, slow and deliberate, as if whatever was inside knew I was there. Then a voice whispered from the dark. Not screaming now. Just one word. Come. The Christmas lights behind me flickered, and the tunnel went silent. I told myself it had been the wind. That's what anyone would do. That's what the people of Pine Hollow expected. To explain away anything strange, to smooth over unease with reason. But when I stepped onto the porch that first night back, barefoot despite the biting cold, the wind made no sound at all. The trees stood silent, the snow untouched except for the faint shimmer of frost in the lamplight. Everything looked calm. Too calm. The scream came then, soft but deliberate, curling through the dark like smoke. Not a shout, not even a plea. More like a sigh stretched thin, patient, waiting. My stomach turned. I wanted to run, but I was rooted, listening. It had come from the mountain road, the one that cut straight through the forest to the old tunnel. The tunnel that everyone in Pine Hollow pretended didn't exist. I had returned to Pine Hollow 3 weeks earlier, chasing something I didn't even understand. A failed career, a stale apartment in the city, and the hollow echoes of home I thought I could reclaim. My mother's house sat at the edge of town, untouched by the chaos I'd left behind. Pine Hollow itself hadn't changed. The diner still smelled of burnt coffee, the gas station windows fogged with condensation, and the mountain loomed above the town like a sentinel. The tunnel had always been there. No lights, no signs, no official warnings beyond its structurally unsound notice. Adults never mentioned it. Kids whispered its name, if at all, and even then they said nothing more. There were stories of disappearances, of echoes trapped inside, but who ever listened? The next morning, I tried to shake off the previous night's unease. At the diner, I asked about the tunnel, casual as I could manage. The room fell silent. Forks froze mid-air. Coffee cups stopped halfway to lips. The bell above the door jingled nervously. Then the waitress leaned close and whispered, voice trembling, "Don't go near it." No further explanation. Just that one sentence. She retreated behind the counter as though afraid the walls themselves might overhear. Later, I stopped by the gas station. The old clerk avoided my eyes as I mentioned the sound. His fingers shook over the register keys. "Some things," he muttered, barely audible, "don't like being remembered." I left without asking more. The town moved on as if nothing happened, but the unease stuck to me, clinging to my skin like the cold that seeped through my shoes. That night, my mother finally broke the silence. I found her by the window, staring toward the mountain. Christmas decorations sat untouched in a box at her feet. The lights inside were dim, casting long, uneasy shadows across the living room. "They shouldn't have opened it," she said softly, voice brittle with memory. I hesitated. Who? Her gaze never left the mountain. "They thought lights would make it safe," she whispered. "Thought Christmas would make it kinder." A chill rose along my spine. What happened? She shook her head. "You'll hear it soon enough." I wanted to ask more, but the words died in my throat. The silence of the house seemed to thicken, as if it were holding its breath, waiting for something inevitable. The scream came again that night. Louder this time, closer. Not urgent, not frantic, patient. Like it had been waiting for me. And that was when I understood. It wasn't the wind. It never had been. The days that followed the first night back were worse than any sleepless city nights I had endured. Pine Hollow seemed normal in the sunlight. Children playing, carolers singing, smoke curling lazily from chimneys. But everything changed after dark. The scream never left me. It wasn't loud enough to wake the town, but it found me in every quiet corner. Echoing through the walls of my mother's house, rattling the edges of sleep, slipping beneath the bathroom door. And sometimes, when I swore I had imagined it, it returned. Mocking, patient, deliberate. I started asking questions. Carefully. At the diner, at the gas station, at the library. I pieced together fragments. The tunnel had been constructed in the early 1950s as a shortcut through the mountain. It was supposed to save the town time, bring prosperity. But almost immediately, strange events began. Accidents, disappearances. Children vanishing on snowy Christmas nights. Local papers had barely covered it, and names had been redacted from the few surviving reports. The most damning detail was in a single line buried in a weathered newspaper clipping I found while rifling through the library archives. Rescue teams reported hearing voices from within the tunnel long after it was sealed. It was as though the mountain itself had swallowed people whole, and kept them. Sleep became impossible. I began seeing flashes in the corner of my eye. Movement too quick to be human, shadows that twisted against the angles of my walls. At the diner, I glimpsed a pale face in the window behind me, disappearing when I turned. At home, boxes I had unpacked shifted overnight, stacked differently, as if someone or something had touched them. The townspeople didn't notice. Or they chose not to. Conversations were clipped, eyes darting away, words falling short of explanations. One afternoon, I cornered the elderly caretaker of the mountain road, a hunched man who had been sealing the tunnel decades ago. "They sealed it for good?" I asked, voice trembling. "After the collapse." He shook his head slowly. "They didn't leave it alone." "Not really." "What do you mean?" His eyes met mine wide and wet. "It remembers everything." That night I dreamed again. The tunnel opened before me in the snow, black and yawning. Inside, Christmas lights dangled like dying fireflies, flickering weakly. I stepped in and the walls seemed alive, pulsing in rhythm with my heartbeat. Voices whispered from the darkness. Fragments of carols, laughter, crying. Sometimes the voices spoke my name. I woke gasping. My hand shook. I couldn't tell if the sounds I heard were in the house or still inside the dream, seeping into reality. By the third night, the micro-events escalated. I awoke to the sound of furniture scraping across the floor, slow and deliberate. My mother's chair, the one she always sat in by the window, had moved halfway across the living room. The air smelled faintly of pine smoke and decay. I whispered, trembling, "Who's there?" No answer. Just the silence that followed, thick enough to choke on. I began documenting everything. Times of the screams, small movements, cold spots, lights flickering. Each pattern pointed to one truth. The tunnel's presence bled into the town, into our homes, into our minds. It wasn't just a place. It was a force. I started walking the mountain road during the day. Each time, the snow underfoot seemed to resist my weight, the air whispering faintly around my ears. The tunnel loomed ahead, black and indifferent. Even in sunlight, shadows stretched unnaturally. Once, a bird landed at the mouth, cocked its head and then, simply dropped dead. Its body lay in the snow as though it had never breathed. At the diner, I met a woman who had grown up here. She refused to give her name. "It waits," she said softly, fingers wrapped tightly around her coffee cup. "Every Christmas. It waits for the curiosity of people. And it answers." I shivered. "Answers how?" She leaned forward. "With voices. With visions. With them." She gestured vaguely as if words couldn't convey it. "The ones it took. And if you listen too long, it takes you too." That night, the scream came earlier. Louder. Direct. I pressed my ear to the floorboards as if listening for some hidden signal, some message beneath the tone of sound. My heart raced. And then I realized, It was different, deliberate, not random. Someone or something was calling me. By the fifth night, I could no longer deny it. The tunnel wasn't just a haunted place. It was sentient, and it remembered every person who had entered. The air around the mountain road pulsed with expectation, heavy with cold that didn't touch the rest of the town. Objects inside my mother's house began moving more aggressively. Boxes tumbled over themselves. Drawers opened and slammed shut. One evening, the Christmas tree lights turned on by themselves, blinking in strange patterns. Not the merry twinkle I remembered from childhood, but a slow, mocking rhythm like a heartbeat. I could feel it, a presence in the walls, in the shadows, always watching, always patient, always hungry. Then came the first whisper. Soft, almost polite. I was kneeling by the fireplace when it happened. "Come," it said. My blood ran cold. I spun, flashlight shaking, heart hammering. The house was empty. My mother asleep in the next room. The wind had not moved. I thought I was imagining it. I wasn't. Over the next week, the whispers became voices. Distorted, overlapping, insistent. Sometimes they sounded like children laughing and crying at the same time. Sometimes like my mother calling my name. Sometimes, terrifyingly, like my own voice answering questions I hadn't asked. By the time I stood at the tunnel's entrance during the sixth night, flashlight in hand, I was no longer afraid of discovery. I was afraid of the inevitability of it, the tunnel calling me, demanding me, promising I could not refuse. And when I stepped forward into the darkness, I felt the first tendrils of panic curl inside my chest. The air smelled of pine and rot. The walls seemed to breathe. My flashlight flickered. Shadows stretched, coiling, folding into one another. Something moved inside, and the voices rose into a chorus. "You are next." I realized then that my paranoia had not been imagined. It had been preparation. And the tunnel was patient. Too patient. I don't remember deciding to enter the tunnel. I only remember standing at the threshold, flashlight trembling in my hand, breath uneven, chest tight enough it hurt. Snow crunched underfoot behind me. The mountain seemed to exhale cold and damp as if warning me away, yet I felt drawn forward, compelled. The darkness inside the tunnel was thick. Not ordinary darkness, but a substance that pressed against your skin, filled your ears and tugged at your thoughts. The scream had stopped. That silence was worse. I stepped in. Immediately, the air shifted. Warmer. Denser. The smell of damp stone and old pine hit me, mixed with something wrong. Something metallic. Something burned. My flashlight flickered. For a moment, the tunnel seemed to stretch farther than human perception should allow. Christmas lights, dim and ghostly, flickered to life along the ceiling. I hadn't touched them. They swayed slowly, like breathing fireflies, illuminating the tunnel's black walls. Shadows danced where no light should reach. I heard whispers. Not one, not two, but dozens, hundreds of voices overlapping. Fragments of carols, laughter, crying. Names. My name. My mother's. Townspeople long missing. Each syllable felt weighted, pulling at my mind. I pressed my hands over my ears, but it did no good. Then I saw them. Figures emerging from the shadows. Dozens, lining the tunnel walls. Faces blurred, distorted, hollow. Eyes empty yet burning with recognition. They didn't move like living things. They drifted, coalescing from darkness itself. Their mouths moved soundlessly, singing, laughing, screaming. One stepped forward. It wore my mother's face. Her voice, calm but wrong, echoed inside my skull. "You left us," it whispered. I stumbled backward, flashlight swinging. The wall behind me rippled like liquid stone. The air grew heavier. My heartbeat thundered. "They thought Christmas could make it kinder," the voice said. "They thought lights could soothe it. But it doesn't forgive. It doesn't forget." I turned to run. The tunnel stretched endlessly now, the exit vanishing behind shadows that twisted and coiled, reaching out for me. Every step forward felt like moving through molasses. The walls closed slightly each time I glanced back, alive and aware, pressing closer. The chorus of voices rose, chanting, singing, calling. My own voice answered, though I hadn't spoken. Words I did not know poured from my lips. Pleas, confessions, memories. Each syllable ripped a piece of my mind. Objects began to move. The walls themselves groaned and shifted. Rocks slid along the floor like crawling creatures. The ceiling bulged. My flashlight flickered, dim, then exploded into darkness, leaving me blind. I ran. Or maybe I was running in place. Time bent around me. Flashes of the past pierced the darkness. The collapse decades ago, screams frozen in the snow, hands pressing against stone from the inside, voices begging for rescue that never came. A hand touched my shoulder. Ice cold. I spun. Nothing. Another touch. Harder. Persistent. Desperate. I could feel it gripping me, pulling me deeper. The tunnel walls opened further ahead. Light poured in, but not white light. The same sickly glow of warped Christmas lights, twisting, swaying, breathing. And there, in the center, a figure stood, a shadow of a child. Face smudged, eyes dark wells, mouth stretched unnaturally. "You shouldn't have come," it said. I screamed. My own voice answered from somewhere behind me. Echoing, multiplying, layering over itself. It wasn't mine alone. The voices of the lost were inside me. I tried to turn, to flee, but the tunnel bent, closed, swallowed. My legs moved, but the exit receded. The walls pressed closer. I fell to my knees. The floor beneath me seemed liquid. Faces emerged from the stone, screaming silently, pressing their cold palms against my skin. I felt my memories twist. Childhood, home, Christmas mornings, replaced with terror, isolation, despair. The figure of my mother, or its imitation, stepped closer. "It never lets go," she said softly, almost tenderly. "It remembers everyone." I tried to speak, but my words became whispers. My name. Please. Accusations. The shadows absorbed them all. The ceiling above pulsed. The tunnel shook violently. Time fractured. Flashes of snow-covered roads, the town below, the collapsed tunnel entrance decades ago, and the lights flickering now, all combined into a single endless moment. I saw my own body, lying in the snow outside, eyes wide with terror, mouth open in a scream. And simultaneously, I was inside, crawling along stone walls, swallowed by darkness that remembered everything I had ever feared. The chorus of voices rose to a crescendo. My mind broke, but still I ran. Still I reached forward. Still I pressed against the cold stone. The last thing I remember before the lights exploded was a whisper, so close it was inside my skull. "Now you belong." And then, silence. Dawn came in a cold, muted haze. Snow lay thick across the mountain road. The tunnel entrance had collapsed overnight, the jagged rocks sealing it completely. The town of Pine Hollow went about its morning as usual. Children laughed on the sidewalks. Cars rolled past the diner. Smoke rose lazily from chimneys. But I knew. I had survived, yes. Or something resembling survival. My body lay in the snow at the tunnel's edge, bruised and frozen, but intact. My heart still beat. My lungs still drew air. And yet, I was not the same. The memories of the tunnel haunted me, spilling into every quiet moment. I could hear faint whispers even in daylight. Soft, patient, curling around my thoughts. A voice behind my ear, sometimes my own voice, sometimes someone else's. Always calling. Always waiting. The town would not speak of it again. Officials called it a collapse, a natural accident. Rescue teams had searched the mountain, found nothing, and left. The truth was buried beneath tons of rock. And yet, the tunnel's presence lingered like a shadow at the edge of vision. Christmas came. Pine Hollow strung its lights. Carols played in every shop. Families gathered. But I could not join them in their cheer. The laughter sounded hollow. The lights flickered oddly to me, as if responding to a rhythm I alone could sense. Every snowflake that fell seemed weighted, carrying the memory of screams trapped inside stone. I tried to move on. I unpacked the boxes in my mother's house, decorated the tree, made coffee in the mornings. But the subtle things reminded me I had been changed. My reflection flickered sometimes, briefly, as if it were not fully mine. Shadows in corners shifted unnaturally. And at night, when all was still, I could hear the faintest trace of that chorus, rising like mist from somewhere deep beneath the mountain. I avoided the mountain road. I avoided thinking of it. Yet the tunnel had left a mark, a residue of inevitability, a sense that no matter where I went, its reach would follow. Weeks passed. And then, one night, I received a phone call. No one on the other end. Just breathing. Slow. Patient. Familiar. I hung up. My hand shook. I went to bed, but sleep would not come. I could feel it pressing against the walls of the house, pressing against me, patient and inevitable. And then I realized something. It had not ended. It could not end. The town may have sealed the tunnel. Rescue teams may have left. But the voices, the memories, the presence of all those lost, it lingered. Waiting for the next curious soul. Waiting for me. Waiting for the next Christmas. I began to understand the truth the townspeople could not say. The tunnel was not just a place. It was a hunger. It remembered every scream, every plea, every child lost to its darkness. And it would never forgive those who survived. I looked out the window that night. Snow fell quietly over the mountain. The collapsed rocks glittered faintly in the moonlight. For a moment, I thought I saw the faintest glow inside the rubble, like Christmas lights. I told myself I imagined it. But then a whisper came, soft as snow, curling through the quiet room. "You'll come back." I froze. The wind outside stilled. The lights flickered. And for the first time, I understood with absolute certainty that the tunnel was not bound by rock, by time, or by anything mortal. It existed wherever fear, memory, and curiosity touched it. It was patient. It was inevitable. And I was not free.